Greetings. Welcome to the Big Box PC Game Collectors VidCast. Today we're joined by Denis Loubet. Denis has worked for Steve Jackson Games, which is a tabletop gaming company that's been around for a really long time. They're right now, Steve Jackson Games, I think, is best known for the Munchkin games. He was also senior artist at Origin and did a lot of their covers for Ultima games and several other things. Denis, we're delighted to have you. Welcome.
Well, this is a pleasure.
So
always look for an interview or anything like that. It's cool.
So you've got a Patreon going at the moment. I wanted to get to mention that to everybody. Tell us about your Patreon.
I'm doing science fiction, fantasy art, mostly Origin centric at the moment, but I'm getting the impression I need to branch out if I need to reach a large, if I want to reach a larger audience. I probably need to do my own stuff, and we'll see if I can actually do anything like that.
You did a redo of the Ultima 7 cover that was just fabulous, and that was available, I believe, as a high res to your Patreon subscribers, was it not?
Oh, yeah, well, I actually put it up high res, I think, on Facebook and stuff. So there are I think I put links where you can download it. So that you can make your own poster. I'm sure someone's clever enough to actually make their own box wrapper out of it. Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, me and Joe were talking about that before you came on. We were like, well, we hope someone starts making those boxes. That'd be like super cool.
I did the Ultima 7 cover because it was a great idea. I mean, we had this high concept black box for Ultima 7, on piece, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, and it worked in the marketing sense apparently, but it wasn't a cover like the other covers, and so I decided, hell, I'll do a cover like the other Ultima box covers.
So you were working at Steve Jackson Games way back, and I believe, I believe that's where you met Richard Garriott.
I was working as a darkroom technician in Houston when my friends in Austin said, hey, come on down to a Society for Creative Anachronism get-together and show Steve Jackson your painting, your demon painting. I had this painting of a demon coming up through a pentagram. And so I said, okay, so I came down there, got in costume, and Steve Jackson was the Baron of the local Society for Creative Anachronism group in Austin. And so I showed him the cover. I mean, I showed him the painting, and he bought it right there as a cover for Space Gamer magazine.
Cool.
And so that was my first, big professional sale. And so then he hired me on as a typesetter. And I was a really terrible typesetter, but I took that position until he could hire me on as their first staff artist. And so then I spent I think a few years there at Steve Jackson Games doing, paste up and artwork and all sorts of stuff. Did the maps for Ogre and GEV, covers for Space Gamer magazine and Fantasy Gamer magazine, sets of cardboard heroes, and lots of stuff for them. And while I was working there, Richard Garriott, who is Lord British, of course, visited the Steve Jackson offices. He was a member of the Society for Creative Anachronism and wanted to show off the game he was working on, Ultima 1, to Steve Jackson. And so he came over and showed Steve what he was doing, but he got to see the stuff I was doing for Steve. And so said, I want you to do the startup screen. Can you do the startup screen for Ultima 1? And I said, sure.
Do you mean the digital art?
Yeah, there's in the start of Ultima 1, at some point, there's a lion rampant, outline of a lion rampant, heraldic lion. And So we found a picture of the lion, and I traced it off on a Apple II graphics tablet, which was a big metal tablet with a wire that led to a metal pen that rattled when you used it. It was not tight. Let's put it that way. And as I drew the outline of the lion, when Richard set up his Apple II and everything, we were getting power spikes through the wall current. And the power spikes showed up as actual spikes, little vertical spikes in the drawing. And so I'd have to go in and erase and redraw and erase and redraw. But we finally got the lion drawn out. So that was how I met Steve, and he contracted me to do the cover for Ultima 1. And so you got the big dragon in the lava pool with the guy on horseback. And so that's how I started doing contract work for Richard. That wasn't Origin yet. That was
Pacific.
Was it California Pacific or man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's California Pacific.
California Pacific actually put out Ultima 1?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Then Ultima 2 was put out by
Sierra.
Sierra, right.
Mm-hmm.
By a cover artist who really liked Battlestar Galactica. And then let's see. Then I did the cover to Ultima 3. And so, yeah. So, and from then on, I was, I think I'd been flown up to New Hampshire, where Origin Systems started, like twice to do art for their manuals and stuff. And at some point in my career, I was doing a lot of freelance work and doing freelance work for Origin. And I decided maybe I should try my hand at comic books. And I did some pencils over inks, pencils over breakdowns for, I think, an issue of Star Wars comic book and some stuff by, I can't remember, a comic artist who lived in San Antonio. And yeah, I did occasional, mostly pencils over breakdowns, just tightening up the artwork. But I was afraid to go full on into comic books because it seemed a lot of work for not much pay.
Yeah, and they have to work really fast too, don't they?
Yeah, and I was not fast. But the thing is, as I was contemplating that, I got a call, and Richard said, "Hi, move the Origin offices to Austin. You want to come work for me?" And I thought about it for about a quarter of a second, and then, yes, absolutely, I absolutely want to come work for you. So that was the story there. I think I came in when they were in the middle of Ultima 5, and I actually think I did some tiles for Ultima 5. So yeah.
I want to hear about the artwork itself. When you were doing paintings, they're large, right? They're
yeah. Not as large as some people do them. They're like, yeah. How can I say this? Like, 2 feet tall by a foot and a half wide, something like that, right? And they were doing acrylics.
All acrylics?
Yeah.
Like pen acrylics of today, or were you brush stroking everything?
It was the plastic acrylics you get in the paint tubes, not house acrylic, but not house paint.
Well, don't they come in pens?
Artist acrylics, yeah.
How long did it take to do
stuff? Huh?
How long did it take to do one artwork, like for Ultima 4 or Ultima 5 or Ultima 6?
Wow. Some paintings just work as I'm doing it. Some paintings I get most of the way done, and I would look at it and go, no, this isn't working. I'd paint over it and with gesso and start again. And That usually horrified anybody who was around when I did it.
So you're saying that hundreds of years from now, when artists are looking at your original work, they're going to be looking at them through X-rays and through all those things, and looking at the artworks underneath, like you see in National Geographic now?
They could potentially see hidden paintings. Now, I painted on weird stuff. I mean, usually, I started off painting on illustration board and not much on canvas. I was not much of a canvas painter. Mostly illustration board. But then at a convention where I met Don Ivan Punchatz, he suggested painting on Herculean drafting film. And it's a plastic film which is slightly translucent. It's not completely transparent. So what that allows you to do is I can do a sketch on paper. I can lay the Herculean drafting film over it, and then paint on the painting. And if the painting doesn't work, I can peel the sketch off the back of it, put another piece of Herculean drafting film down, and start doing it. I don't have to redo the sketch.
Well, that's cool.
Awesome. And you can even kind of, if you're careful enough in your painting, you can kind of adjust the color balance of your painting by peeling the sketch off the back and painting the back of it a certain color. You can kind of adjust the color of the whole painting that way.
That's so cool.
It's really weird.
Now, do you still do work? I'm sorry, pass, go.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, what was the process like? Do you get any input or specifications, or was it like, hey, we're doing a new game and have fun, make some artwork?
These were all images like pretty much straight out of Richard's head. I mean, he described the scenes. He didn't give me every detail, but it's like, yeah, the cover to Ultima 6. He described exactly what I painted there. Gargoyle on the ground, the avatar with a foot on the chest, the golden light shining down, and he's looking up into it. Yeah, that was Richard all the way.
And was it like you
as I could. Huh?
Was it like you did like one, or was it like 20 until he was satisfied with the results, or was it like?
Oh, it was usually the first thing. I mean,
okay, cool.
Richard was good to work for because he was easy to please.
Nice.
I like to think it was my skill, but hey, I think.
Pascal's question actually segues into something I've always wondered. If you had to think back on all the covers that you've done, or other types of artwork, which piece do you think that you struggled with the most, either because you were having a difficulty capturing the vision of whoever had commissioned you, or you were having difficulty meeting your own personal standards for what you felt like you wanted it to be?
Yeah, of the Ultima stuff?
Of anything that you've created.
Oh, man, anything. Oh, gosh. If something's really bad, I usually don't let anyone see it. There have been stuff like that. But it's like, of the Ultimas, I think the one that I was least satisfied with was the Serpent Isle snake. That golden sort of cobra-esque snake.
Right.
Like it was the Earth Serpent or something. That one didn't work out exactly.
Did you do a number of attempts on it?
Yeah, I did a number of attempts. I think that was one of a number of paintings that I painted over and started again, and still it didn't come out exactly the way I wanted. I just didn't have the skill in handling light and shadow at that time that I really needed to bring that to what it should have been.
You said Richard was easy to please. Who did you work with that you felt was less easy or more?
Well, that Serpent Isle one was done, of course, for Warren Spector, I believe, and he accepted that one. The person I had the most trouble with was Chris Roberts. Oddly enough, the thing was, The horrible thing is he was usually right. I'd do a picture, and he'd look at it and go, "No, I'm not quite satisfied with it." He wouldn't give me specific directions on how to fix it. He'd just say, "Do it again," And I'd go, "Oh God, all right," and I'd go back and I'd do it again, and I'd end up with a better picture. And then finally he'd accept that one. And I'd go, "Okay, well, gosh darn it, he knows me better than I know myself." Great.
Now, what specifically? Do you remember a specific artwork for Wing Commander? I know that Wing 3 was Yates and Wing 4 was a picture, but the first one was actually, wasn't it the cover? It's the cover of, it's a screenshot.
Right.
Well, it was purported to be a screenshot of actual gameplay, but it wasn't. I mean, it was a cut and paste job, but we kept the pixels that you could easily see and stuff like that. And the slogan on the box was, "What you see is what you play," so it's like, that was really close to what you actually saw playing the game. So I assembled that montage of images and tried to make it look like actual gameplay and stuff. But for Wing Commander, what I did was the cockpits. I did all the cockpits and the backgrounds in the cutscenes and stuff. I think I did that stuff for Wing Commander 1 and 2. When they went into Wing Commander 3, I was pretty much, they went all Hollywood, and I wasn't involved in that.
So you're saying that the cover of Wing Commander 1 is technically not a screenshot, but
it's not a screenshot.
It's enhanced with your art.
An assembly of screenshots.
Ah.
Yeah, because back then, that would have been, you would have been cutting that out by hand, right? And doing a paste up, and not, because they didn't have like Photoshop back then. To just
yeah, we didn't have I didn't have access to advanced programs like 3D Studio and things like that yet. So yeah, it was all, I was working with more or less traditional media, but well, no, I was working with Deluxe Paint on an Apple II GS, I believe. I worked in Deluxe Paint on Apple II GS for several years at Origin. And I think that's where I assembled the cover to Wing Commander, I think.
Very cool.
And how do you digitize graphics on an Apple II GS?
Well, it was screenshots, and so we cut them out and paste them up, I think.
Huh.
And you just have to go in real careful with your brush and cut it out. There was no masked layers, you just erase the background and stuff.
This is something we talk about a lot in our group. Now, you're talking Wing Commander, Savage Empire, Martian Dreams. This is all circa 1990, 1991, even 92. And I believe that everybody knows that the large publishers for magazines and things like that were all digital by then. But Origin was still that cut and paste, old newspaper style. We'll move the headline over here and move this over here, and this whole cutout kind of thing. Was it because you were behind the times, because it was kind of a mom and pop shop, or did people prefer to do it that way until much later?
I didn't get the impression that anybody was doing it differently.
Oh, really?
Really didn't, yeah.
I thought everybody was using the computers and the Macs and digitizing and stuff in the publishing realm, but it seemed like
may have been a thing, but we didn't have much in the way. Once Wing Commander came out, it was clear that the PC had claimed the market, and so all the stuff was done for, first and foremost for the PC. Before that point, it was all, okay, we have to make this game. Okay, now we have to make it again for the Atari. Okay, now we have to make it again for the Commodore. Okay, now we have to make it again for the Amiga. And that got exhausting after a while. And we were looking for an excuse to find one platform that would handle 90% of the market, and the PC was it. And so, but a lot of the art that appeared on, I guess, with the advent of the PC claiming that much of the market, the 24-bit color cards started coming out. And I have to, you know, as unpopular as that may be, I have to thank Windows for that. Because I think it was that the idea that, boy, once you have an MS-DOS machine with 90% of the market, if you make a video card that does 24-bit color, everyone's got to have one. And so at about that point, I guess, you know, it was an Apollo project to get computer graphics to the point where, you know, you were working with, you know, with Photoshop and 24-bit color and, you know, super fast updates and all that stuff. So it was like, that's when we went digital. So yeah, I guess after Wing Commander, I guess I was doing the art on PC. My memories aren't totally clear anymore. It was I worked at Origin for 10 years. It's hard to remember exactly what I worked on every time.
Hey Dennis, I have another question about your time at Origin. There was a brief period where Origin toyed with the idea, as opposed to doing traditional art covers, they went for the live action shots. The three games that come to mind were Night of Legends, Space Rogue, and Windwalker. And I was curious as to, did you have an opinion at the time on that? And what was the discussion like among the...
Voice playing pretty loudly, but I really didn't like it that much.
How did that come about? It was such a
good thing, you know. Huh?
How did it come about?
You know, I don't know. I was too busy actually working on art in games to actually question the marketing department. Marketing department was in a wholly different place in the building, and I didn't really interact with the marketing department that much, strangely enough. They would often use my art and paste up, or maybe ask for some special art to include in advertisements. But I very rarely had direct access to them.
Were you a game player at all when you were there? Like, did you play a lot of games since you were around them all the time?
Oh heck yeah! I mean, gosh, when the first Civilization came out,
oh yeah,
Office like a letter bomb. I mean, productivity suddenly tanked. Everybody was playing Civ. So yeah. Oh yeah, we all played games. I really enjoyed Wing Commander when it first came out. I mean, we knew we had a hit with Wing Commander when the playtesters were actually literally falling out of their chairs, dodging ships. I mean, nobody had seen anything like it before. And so, ship coming directly at you, you dodged to the side, you fell out of your chair. It was it was hilarious.
I always like to envision that the Origin had like a D&D crew, like a Dungeons and Dragons crew. Did you guys ever hit any role playing?
No. When I first started, there were a lot of we were in a building with a big atrium, and we'd get Nerf guns or the equivalent, and go around actual sort of live action blasting away at each other with rubber darts and things like that. We didn't really have a D&D game going on, which was kind of odd, but no, everybody was too into computers. They wanted, you know, if there was a computer game, they'd be playing that instead. Now all the gaming I needed from at home, and my game master was New York Times best-selling author Aaron Alston. And boy, once you had Aaron Alston as your game master, you're spoiled for anyone else. Wow. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Hero Games. We had a big Hero Games. We started playing Hero Games when Aaron Alston was working at Steve Jackson Games. he started the Strike Force campaign there, and that lasted for years and years and years. Superhero role playing. It was great.
Hold on, wait. You're trying to tell me that there is a scene in the past where Steve Jackson, Aaron Alston, and Denis Loubet are all hanging out playing D&D, with Aaron writing the story and Denis doodling on pieces of paper and showing characters?
Yep. Oh,
that's
add another name to that. Warren Spector.
It's like geek nirvana, man. You should have videotaped it. You could have made a fortune.
This would have to go. There's a pantheon of great D&D crews, right? So we have to add this one to the crew, and there's also the Tracy Hickman, Margaret Weiss, Larry Elmore crew. You know, the Dragonlance crew, which is like an epic D&D crew, right?
Currently, I'm about a year ago, I was playing in a Thursday game that included Jeff D, B, and Dennis Soster,
which is basically the crew that wrote and drew all the Dungeons and Dragons books themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, for other people, this is like the ultimate fantasy. For you guys, it's Thursday.
It was Thursday. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Have you ever bumped in, like, there's a fantasy artist? You were kind of a fantasy artist at the time when, like, I think fantasy art was like in its heyday, right? Like, because you had all those Dungeons and Dragons folks and all the Steve Jackson Games folks and all those guys that really kind of painted the way that we envision fantasy now. You know, like they took the Tolkien thing and really took it somewhere. Have you met those folks, or have you ever interacted with them much?
Not really. No. I've been to conventions where I'd met people like Boris Viejo, numerous other artists, but I didn't really have. I didn't feel that I had much to say to them. You know, I had my style, they had theirs. We were, you know, I just, how I do art is I basically studied the artists I liked, saw how they solved the problems they solved, and, you know, incorporated whatever techniques I thought they used and stuff in my own art.
It's funny because I spent a lot of I wanted to be an artist when I was a kid, and I spent an inordinate amount of time copying probably your drawings, because I have a massive Dragon magazine collection down there, and I know I've bumped into your stuff in there for ads for Steve Jackson and stuff, and of course the Ultima covers. But yeah, a lot of that art is what kind of made me the person I am today, you know, in a way. Because like it just encompasses my childhood. It's like the in painting form, is because I spent all my time looking at that sort of art, because it was just really spoke to me, you know.
Well, I went through the same process. I can trace my entire career back to a single paperback book cover. The Lancer edition of Conan the Adventurer, with Conan standing atop that body, you know, atop the pile of bodies, with the woman on his leg, with the sword. And it's like, I was like 9 years old. I was taking piano lessons, and after the piano lessons, we'd always go to this cigar shop that also doubled as a bookstore. And I'd go to the science fiction fantasy section and look through it. And I saw that Lancer edition cover done by Frank Frazetta and went, that's what I want to do.
And Frazetta was just the man. I mean, Frazetta was just so awesome.
Yeah, I got the posters, I studied to see how he laid down the colors, which ones he laid down first, which ones he laid down second, stuff like you could tell, because he worked from dark to light. And so you could tell that he brushed in the the dark colors, and then brushed in the light colors, because you'd have the weave of the canvas. Just the light colors would have their would exist on the top of the fibers.
Cool.
You could see that, the top of the weave, and so you could see, he laid down the dark colors first, then the light colors and stuff like that. And it was like his compositions and stuff, his mastery of composition, that just killed me. To this day, I still aspire to doing something close to his.
Now, your work on the interiors of Origin products with your classic black and white pen and ink drawings, were they influenced as well?
Yeah.
I mean, you have a style that I think many game players, as well as many artists, can identify immediately. You can look at it and point and go, that's a Loubet.
Yeah, strangely enough, it's hard for me to identify that, but yeah.
All right, we all think we do.
It's weird. I can identify another artist's work in an instant, but my own stuff, I look for what people call my style, and I can't see it. But I am somewhat of a chameleon. I'll do different. I only used that fine line artwork pretty much for the Origin stuff, and other stuff when I was doing art for hero games. I do more of a superhero brushstroke kind of inking and stuff instead of this fine line stuff. And the fine line stuff was inspired by Bernie Wrightson. He did this Frankenstein book that was like incredibly fine line work. And then I later come to realize that, Bernie Wrightson was influenced to do that by Franklin Booth, a 19th century illustrator. And I advise everyone to look up his art, because it's freaking awesome. It's pen and ink. I thought it was etching, but no, it's pen and ink, and it's like super fine lines. I can't even conceive of doing the stuff he did.
It's funny. That's kind of how art like builds on itself. Like you're influenced by Frazetta, and then people are influenced by you, like I was influenced by you, and it just kind of goes on and on and on like that.
You stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, speaking of the way that you approach your art, Dennis, you mentioned a second ago something that's I thought was kind of interesting. I've never thought of before. You mentioned looking at the way other artists solve problems, and I've never really thought of art. Not being an artist myself, is that how you look at a task, a scene that you want to paint, as a series of challenges or problems to be overcome? How does that work when you're creating?
Often, early in my career, I fought with my materials a lot. I mean, I couldn't get the effects I wanted out of the acrylic paintings, the acrylic paint I was using. I couldn't get the effects. So it was like I'm fighting with my materials to get what I wanted. And that's eased off somewhat, but everything's still a challenge. And the challenges change. It used to be just composition was my big challenge. Getting the thing to work, trying to keep it down to just a few elements and make it really bold. And now it's I'll have challenges where I'm going, well, I need to make the light and darkness kind of balance out here, and working on a different level. The composition's under control. Now I've got to master light and dark and color. I wish I had. There are other artists that I look at their work and go, God, I wish I had their color sense, or man, I wish I knew how to handle light like they do. And
it's from a pedestrian point of view. I think it's easy to think of art as just an exercise and expression, and not as a series of problems to be overcome, or a series of challenges that have to be faced down. But that's interesting.
Yeah, during much of my career, I didn't really want to call myself an artist, because artists brings up images of, you know, abstract paintings in museums, right? And I'm not that. And so I call myself an illustrator. And so I was all about commercial art. And, you know, as lurid as the stuff I do is, it's commercial art. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to master the idea of commercial art. Let the artists do their fine art. But I've come to appreciate that real artists, wow, they will do some really interesting juxtapositions of imagery, stuff I would never think of. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of why I don't call myself an artist. They've got a special thing going.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because and to get your frame of mind on that, which is fascinating, because what you're seeing now, and you've probably seen it a little bit too, is the current generations or the younger people who maybe didn't grow up in the 80s, surrounded by the stuff like we did, or kind of immersed in this stuff, now are looking back at these things and kind of revering them, you know, like what once was a commercial art piece, or like a graphic design piece or whatever, is now a piece of high art to the new generations, who are like digging through what we were looking at back then, like an archaeological dig or something, and just putting it on a pedestal and really appreciating it.
What's old is new again. Yeah.
Because I mean, the comic books are just like, those 80s comics are just everywhere right now, you know.
Yeah, well, retro is popular, you know.
Yeah.
Cool, get that golden age look. Yeah. The artist that's most influencing me at the moment is got to be Mike Mignola.
The Hellboy, man, is just one of the most beautiful comic books. You can frame every frame in that comic book. Is beautiful.
Yes, I mean, he does more with one scraggly line than other comic artists do with a whole splash page. I mean, it's like, I don't know how he does it. So, but I'm studying his composition and stealing some of his technique here and there.
Dennis, do you know what happened to all the originals? Do you still have some of those, or do you know where they are, or what?
Well, I know where they are. For the origin stuff, for the covers to Ultimas and stuff, Richard has a lot of them hanging up in the Portalarium offices.
Okay, nice.
You'll see the original Ultima 6 cover, the Ultima 5 cover, stuff like that. Yeah, he's got a lot of that. I think some of the black and white art, though, I did, is lost forever. I mean, they ended up in marketing department files, and when the marketing department needed room, sometimes they just cleaned out some shelves, and I went, oh yeah, there is some painful admission that maybe our efforts at archiving wasn't as complete as we would have liked.
You don't have anything at all?
I have sketches. I have preliminary sketches. I have stuff I use to compose covers. I would draw things on paper. I would do a sketch. When I got a sketch that I thought was good, I would take it to the copy machine. I would copy it at whatever. I would either enlarge it or shrink it to what I needed, and then I'd cut out that and paste it up. And I would kind of do, you know, what you do in Photoshop and layers in actual pieces of cutout paper to arrange covers and things like that. And then I'd use that to go on the back of the Herculean drafting film, and then I'd paint the cover of the Herculean drafting film.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess I kind of did cut and paste before it was cut and paste. So yeah.
But you kept some of that original artwork. I mean, there are still pieces in your personal collection that go back, bring you those memories and those ideas.
Wow, I've got some sketches of some. I'm not sure what game it was for. It might have been for Ultima Online.
Oh, we'll tell you. Don't worry.
Maybe for something earlier than that. It's not something you ever saw, but it was these sketches of how to arrange buildings and various landmarks. One was like a wooden palisade around a hole in the ground or something, some sort of prison, I think.
Interesting.
But anyway, it was based on your isometric diamond pattern thing, and I came up with the idea of why not have the buildings follow the grain of the diamond patterns, and then you could have like circuitous roads that led between those buildings. And I thought that would look kind of cool, but I don't know if they ever used that. Usually when you're in a isometric game, they just have the buildings be horizontal and vertical and have half walls and things like that.
I know that there must have been some point where you transitioned from physical media to digital media. Do you remember when that occurred? What was some of the first work that you did that was digital media primarily, when you actually made the switch?
Right. Well, if you look at the covers, the cover to Shadowcaster was digital. The cover to Ultima Underworld II was digital. Yeah, I made the I made the change as quickly as possible, because I was painting with things like, cadmium red light and stuff like that, colors that are made out of heavy metals, which aren't good for you. And so I transitioned to digital media as quick as I could, simply to avoid being poisoned eventually. At least that was part of the excuse. The other part of the excuse was undo. The ability to have an undo is godlike to me, at least. So I don't have to commit. Yes.
Were there decisions that were made for your artwork that you ended up going against or didn't turn out the way you want? There's a specific question I always wanted to ask you. Times of Lore.
Yeah.
Very famous cover.
Yeah.
The inside manual is another work that I think this is yours as well, yes?
That's fine.
This should have been the cover, in my opinion. Why? You know what I mean? This one, no disrespect, that's the better artwork. Why was this decision made? And do you disagree or agree with me? And is there a story behind that where you were going to throttle someone by going, "That's the cover"?
No. As a illustrator, I pretty much did what the client wanted me to do, and so Chris Roberts was the client for that one, and he had his idea what the cover was supposed to look like, and he gave me more latitude in the cover for the rule book there, but no, just didn't disagree on their decisions on that. Gosh, did I ever really disagree with decisions? I would sometimes disagree as to the handling of I sometimes disagreed in which artists they used to do a piece of art. I would say, I don't think so-and-so is right for this cover, or for this piece of art. I think so-and-so would be better for that. But that's just, the artists were good at certain things, and I never really got the description of art director at Origin, because art directing was all management. But I did get to know the artists there and had a good idea of their strengths and weaknesses and stuff. And I actually did have a hand in hiring many of them. And so, yeah, I think the first artist, that I said, we need to hire this guy was Glenn Johnson, and he did a lot of good work for Wing Commander and Ultima and stuff like that. So yeah.
Where is he now?
Don't know. He kind of disappeared off the map.
Another fantastic artist.
Yeah, it's strange.
Ultima 6. I think a lot of us have said, and we've talked about this sometimes.
Oh, you've got an issue in. You've got it in shrink wrap.
Yeah. For my money, this here, the best role-playing game cover ever conceived, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was Richard's doing, and it turned out really great. That cover just came together.
Have to be a close second. Would have to be the Ultima 5 cover for me, which is just
everyone likes that.
It's just incredible, So what in your opinion would you say is your favorite one that you did of all those?
I have to say Ultima 6. It's the clearest.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
The most well executed of them all. I mean, I got very little to actually complain about in that cover. When I was working on art, on covers in that era, it was like all I could see when I looked at the final product was the mistakes, the things I wanted to change. Even then, I'd say, I'd want to take it back and do some more on it, but I couldn't be a perfectionist because I had to actually deliver the art. And so all I could see was the mistakes, and it took years to look at them later and go, oh yeah, that actually turned out pretty well. I can see what everybody else was seeing when they saw it for the first time, because they aren't focusing on the niggling little errors that I didn't like.
All right, Dennis, let me give you just a very, very quick explanation of the people that you're speaking to right now.
Yeah.
Completely and totally impromptu. We collect and preserve big box PC games. Let me prove to you that we are experts in our field. I would like to ask, by a show of hands of everybody here, who noticed the unusualness of that box that Dennis picked up just a moment ago? Is everybody else in the same vein as I am?
I don't think I saw it because he's a little square on my screen. I didn't see.
That box was it Ultima 6 Special Edition.
Oh, are you serious?
By you and Richard.
Did it have the format label on the wrong side?
No, that's got autographs on both of them. That's a sealed copy of the Ultima 6 Special Edition. That's very limited, Dennis. That's worth some serious coinage. A sealed copy of that? I only know of one other. That's a big.
Yeah, it's got my signature on it, and it's got Lord British's signature on it. So,
there's all kinds of extra stuff in there. There's that cassette in it with Richard talking about Ultima and all that stuff. So I'm sorry to ruin it for everybody. Everybody else was lying. They knew what that was, and they were going to try to buy it off you after the broadcast.
Yeah, it's worth, Dennis. It's worth about $20.
What it's worth now.
It's worth about $20.
No,
if you want to sell it, I'll hit you up on Facebook. Oh yeah, that's just
that's the other
incredible cover.
There's the Savage Empire.
You just can't beat dinosaurs, can you?
No.
Well, there are not many females in Ultima covers.
Old shrink wrap copy of Ogre.
Classic.
Let's see. Caverns of Callisto.
Oh man, that one's hard to get.
Wait. Is that sealed?
That's sealed.
You're my new hero.
Wow.
One of those.
Apple version, joystick required.
Oh, wait. Let me smell it. Let me see the. Oh,
Dennis, that is worth about $30. If you would like to, I'll PayPal you on Facebook. We can make a trade or something.
Yeah, there ain't many of them out.
No, there's not.
Omega.
Oh wow.
Cool. You didn't do the cover to that, did you?
I actually did the cover to that one.
Son of a gun, I didn't know.
It was some archaic high-end computer graphics program, vector-based. And so, yeah, I threw this together, and I think the background is more just pixel editing, but I wanted all that glow around the green lines and stuff.
So for a cover like that, were you given much direction, or was that you didn't? That didn't seem to imply the way you just talked about that you were.
No, I wasn't. I didn't get much direction on this one. The guy doing this one, Stuart, he wasn't that specific on the cover idea that he had. So yeah, I made a cool tank and picture and a hover tank and put it on there.
Oh, cool.
That's funny. That game came up real recently.
The photo cover for Knights of Legend.
Do you keep that just to keep yourself angry, or?
Yeah, and Wing Commander.
That's got to be one of the most epic box covers of all time. I mean,
I tried to keep the pixels the same size. So yeah, these are all screenshots, but they're assembled into the scene. But this scene could happen in the game, so I didn't feel too bad about pretending it was an actual screenshot.
And that is a 100% original release. That sticker denotes that it is the very first release of that game.
Yeah. And let's see, I got special operations and let's see if I can get it on camera here. Yeah. Those two in their shrink wrap.
Oh man. Now you did all the art for
At times more, yes.
So you did the art for the insides of the games as well. You did all of those graphics for the cutscenes for Wing Commander, right?
Oh yeah. I was especially proud of the guys running down the corridor.
oh, that's a great scene. Yeah.
Do you remember,
Down the feet running. That
do
was.
you remember who was that actually? Do you remember the people? Because that's kind of what they called rotoscoped.
Yeah. We actually had people on treadmills, and we videotaped them, and then I kind of traced over it and cleaned up all the edges and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked great. So, I did all sorts of stuff for the Wing Commander things. I mean, I assembled some of the debris that flies out of the explosions. I assembled that out of note cards and coffee straws, and hung them on wires and drew them at the different angles so that they would rotate as they spun out of the.
Did you do the actual explosions themselves in Wing Commander?
I think so, yeah.
Because that is, nobody ever talks about that. That's a milestone for gaming. That is probably one of the very first times that somebody did the reds and oranges and yellows of that explosion. And
You know how
the
I
first
did that?
realistic explosion I had ever seen in a computer game before.
You know how I did that? It was super simple, but I can't do it anymore. I was working with deluxe paint. And so you're working with, your 256 colors in deluxe paint. And they had an airbrush that you would hold the, I think I used there were no graphics tablets. I think I was using a mouse, and you'd hold down the button, and it would spray whatever color you had.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, if you chose dark red, it would, and the right chose the right commands, it would make it brighter red as it brushed. And it went from red to orange to yellow to white. It's like it was like the auto explosion feature.
Oh, that's cool.
And it made doing explosions so easy. It was astonishing. But
Now, I may
you
be
don't get that tool anymore in a game in a art program.
now I may be speaking out of turn, but I'm sure these experts will go look this stuff up afterwards, but that may be a claim to fame because, like I said, you may be the father of the digital explosion. You never know.
Well, definitely they were unique. That's for sure. I mean, I'd been playing some. I'd never seen anything like it in the games I'd been playing.
Oh yeah, I know. Wing Commander was mind-boggling. Yeah, it was Chris Roberts saying, "Oh, I quite like this game, Battlehawks 1941. Why don't we do a space game?" Or Battlehawks 1942? 1942, I think it was, right. Where basically the principle was you had a plane, an airplane, and you did 3D renders of it from all directions, and then when you're displaying it in game, the computer chooses which view to use, how much to scale it, and how much to rotate it, and it's like, boom, you've got this pseudo 3D going. And so he said, let's do space opera, and we said, okay. And it worked. I designed the radar screen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I said, have these dots. Basically I was thinking, at one point I was thinking, you could simulate peripheral vision in a game by compressing action. As you get further from the center of the screen, start compressing the image till the pixel right along the edge of the screen is directly behind your head, if you want to go that far.
Are you saying that you came up with that concept?
Yeah, I came up with that concept.
Because I got a feeling that modern aircraft use that in their radar now.
Probably do, but I didn't know that. So I just invented that because I wanted there to be a dot, and if you steer towards that dot, that'll bring the enemy ship right into view. I mean, it's like dirt simple. So
everybody in computer gaming stole that. Everybody. You're owed some residuals somewhere, maybe from the federal government. I don't know.
I remember in Privateer 2, The Darkening, they introduced a new version of the radar which had the different axes, but you could press Alt-R, and I would always hit Alt-R and return to your design version of the radar because that's the only one I could navigate.
It just told you which way you needed to turn. That's all you needed to know. Yeah. You don't need a 3D representation. You just know which way to turn.
That is the most important question tonight. How much do we have to pay you to make an artwork for our Facebook Big Box Collectors Group?
Don't know.
How much does Pascal have to pay you to do artwork for?
How much has our fearless leader Joel to pay?
Well, we'll take that discussion offline, I think. Yeah.
I would. Let's see. I would do an artwork for you for, say, a Ultima 6 special edition. I don't ask for much, So, what after Origin it was bought out and ceased to be? I think you mentioned that you're back with Steve Jackson again. Did you?
Well, I'm just doing one little contract piece of work for them.
Mm-hmm.
After Origin, I dealt with startups. I left Origin because it had just grown too big. I was a tiny cog now at that point. When I had started Origin, there were like 12 people there. I was a big fish in a small pond, and I could make a difference. But by the time I left Origin, it was hundreds of employees, and they were all in their separate little development groups. And it's like I couldn't tell what was happening in the company anymore. I didn't feel like it was things. So I went and worked for Illusion Machines, a company started by the Beemans, Ellen and Steve Beeman, who did work for Origin. And came to work for them, did some art for a game, and it was the healthiest development cycle I'd witnessed since like Ultima 5. It was like, oh my gosh, every day a new feature in the game, and it worked, and it was cool, and it was growing, it was getting great. And on the cusp of success, the company we were doing our game for wrenched defeat from the jaws of victory, and our company went belly up, and Illusion Machines went belly up, and that was the end of that. Then I got involved in a startup doing a game very much like an early Ultima called Dransic from a company called Asylum Soft. And through different incarnations of investors and selling it to different and selling it to a company to run and stuff like that, we took something that looked like circa Ultima 5 and transformed it into a game called Ashen Empires, which has a tile graphics system that is like second to none, where it's awesome. But it's now, the company wasn't making enough money on it. We didn't have $1 million for an advertising campaign, and we couldn't get enough people playing the game. And so it's still up and running, but it's kind of moribund. But you could check it out. And that was done under Pixel Mind Games. And yeah. And so my time with startups came to an end finally, because it was barely squeaking along, and they usually failed. But Pixel Mind lasted for like 5 years, and so that's not a failure in any sense of the word. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So now I'm trying. I did a stint at King's Isle. But I find I'm less and less satisfied working for a big company. Having been in the startup business, even though it wasn't lucrative, being your own boss has a big draw to it. And so I'm trying to start up. I started up this Patreon, and so I'm taking on contract work and trying to do stuff for my patrons. I'd love if I could get 3 times more patrons than I currently have. I could do stuff for my patrons all the time, because that would keep me alive. But right now I don't have enough patrons, as awesome as they are. I just don't have enough. So I got to take on contract work from companies and things like that, and that gets in the way of doing cool stuff for my patrons. Right, so it's www.patreon.com/Denis Loubet. One word and one N.
Yeah, if you're watching, check this out. It's great, and the world needs more great fantasy art. You just can't ever have enough of it. So it's been a pleasure talking to you, because I wasn't kidding when I say that you and folks like you are people who really turned me into the adult I am now. Thanks for everything you do.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Dennis.
Everybody, check out that Patreon for sure. I'll put a link in the description. Dennis, thanks for being here, and
thanks so much for having me. Love to come back anytime you want.